and was part of the going out of the 70. And, the other 11 thought he's part of the team. Good grief, he was handling the money. Now, he was putting his hand in the money. The Gospel of John I love how John just throws him under the bus. But anyway, but they had no clue. Matter of fact, at the upper room, when Jesus said, "One of you will betray me," Peter's over there telling John, ask him. Because they didn't know. They didn't suspect Judas. And so what you're asking is, for those people that we have in our church that have been a part of the team, have been a part of the church for a period of time, that play church life or do church life, but really do not have the evidence of being born again, being a believer. How do you handle that? Is that a synopsis of what you said? Okay. Yeah, that's tough. Let me simply say this, that I believe, based upon what I've been looking through in the Gospel of John, Jesus gave Judas every opportunity, even up to the point of dipping the bread in the juice and handing it to him. That was a picture of grace. Could have handed it to anybody, but he handed it to Judas because he said, to the one that I give this to will be the one that will betray me. Okay? So it was up to that point that they had no clue. All right? So I think what we have to do is I think we have to show the people grace, and I think we need to have one-on-one candid conversations. What I mean by that is not about the conflict or anything, but to sit down with you and just simply say, hey, look, I know you've been here a whole lot longer than I have, so tell me your story. Tell me how you come to faith in Christ. Tell me how that relationship has changed over your life. Okay? Because we can assume, we inherit these people, right? And we assume just because they're there and they show up all the time that they're believers. They give, matter of fact, they may even pray, all of that kind of good stuff. They're part of our teams, but if they're really more a thorn in our flesh than anything else, then I think we just need to have a conversation with them. And I think it starts with a gospel-centered conversation. Because I really need to get to know this person. And I think the better that we know the individual and build those kind of relationships, I think it will begin to open up doors of opportunity to have those kinds of conversations. And so I think that's where you have to start. Now, if they say that they're a believer and that they've trusted Christ as their Lord and Savior, then that takes it another step to where you say, okay, then how can I help you as your pastor? How can I help you in the disciple-making process? Okay? Taking Mark's term, okay? Because we're all disciples of Christ. Oh, and let me say this. Do you remember what he said? I believe it was in 1354. 34. Matter of fact, 1334. I had it and I didn't even use it, but your question prompted it. Jesus is talking to his disciples. It's a private conversation in the upper room. This is what he says. He says, "A new commandment I give to you." You know where I'm headed, right? That you love one another. So this individual that I'm talking to, man, you and I are supposed to have love for one another. Okay? Matter of fact, he said, by this all will know that you are my disciples if you have love one for another. Now here's the interesting thing. He calls it a new commandment, but it's not really a new commandment at all. In Leviticus 19:18, they knew this from the Old Testament. They were taught this. They memorized this. Look at what it says. Chapter 19, verse 18, it says this, "And you shall not make vengeance nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself." I am the Lord. So I'm looking at this individual and go, hey, dude, or dudette, whichever one they are, and just simply say, hey, look, you and I have to have Christ-like love. The reason he says a new commandment is because love had been put on the back burner. It had become more of a law instead of a Christ-like love, which was sacrificial, unconditional, and unassuming. He's saying, look, you need to manifest that before anything else. And so I'm looking at this individual that I'm talking to and say, look, I want to manifest that first. I need you to do the same thing. That makes sense? Okay. Because, and again, sometimes those are not necessarily easy conversations to have, but I think you have to start there. I'm not talking about any issues. I'm not talking about any history. I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about you, because as a pastor, my bottom line concern is you, right? So, and I think that will help, because the worst thing that we can do is assume. We can't assume anything. That'll get us in trouble, right? Okay, that's a great question. Okay, any other questions? We got food coming, especially for those of you who are watching video. You don't get the food, we get the food, but you'll edit that out, I'm sure. But listen, guys. I mean, yeah, I got 18 other fill in the blanks that I can give you, but if I'm going to give you the PowerPoint, you can fill them in. What I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that I answered questions that you had, so that you could walk out of here and saying that it was worth it, instead of just pizza and a ball game. Okay. Now, listen, if that's all you get, that's great. At least you got something out of it. That's what one of my professors used to say. He said, look, even if you sleep in my class, I know you got something out of it. Okay, so, but I'm hoping that some of this will help you put together, and I understand when I use the word systematic, but it'll give you a process, a way of being, again, more proactive instead of reactive. One of the things, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, when do you ask for outside help?
A lot of times that when is when it's too late. That's what happens most of the time. I find that in church revitalization as well. Churches are on the verge of closing their doors, then they come and ask for help. In conflict a lot of times, and let me just say this because I are one, pastors are prideful in many ways. They think that they can handle it. They think they can do it in-house and come to resolve. In some instances that can happen because you've got a strong leader, a good leader, then you've got good people around you. But here's what I would say, Mark, and that's a great question, is that if you can't resolve something that should be able to be resolved within either a few weeks or a few months, depending on what it is, then I probably would start asking for outside help. Okay? I think most of the calls that I've had, Mark, from churches around the state, most of them the pastor just needed some tweaking in his approach, or he just needed the right questions to ask, and that got them to where they needed to be. There's only been a couple of times where I've come across guys to where, I mean, they are in combat, they're in the battle, and unfortunately they called a little bit too late, and so they're needing another platoon to come in, and so. But I would say if you can't resolve it, if it's a simple thing and you can't resolve it because there's just something there within I would say 2 to 3 weeks, then you ask for outside help. Or if it's a little bit more of a major issue, within 2 to 3 months, I would ask for help. Okay? And I'm going to tell you that's probably subjective, because I think it depends on each situation sometimes. Okay? Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Like I said before, some other people have found out that I've been doing this, and I will admit for the very first time. So Any feedback that you want to give me off camera would be nice. I'm kidding. So that I can put this together. When I looked at the time, I thought, oh my goodness, I got to fill almost 3 hours. How am I going to do that? I don't have that kind of material. But anyway, I'm leaving you with more than I was able to give you. But hopefully some of that today will help you out. Let me tell you, there are a ton of resources. All you have to do is Google church conflict resolution. There is a gazillion things out there, a lot of which are good, okay? Peacemakers, are you familiar with them? Peacemakers is huge. Ken Sandy, matter of fact, the stuff that I was going to give you came from him. He said, use it. He goes, it's all yours. Use it however you want. There were some of the things I didn't like, so I didn't use them. Okay, but most of it's there, and it'll be on the PowerPoint. Okay, when it comes to conflict within marriages or families, Focus on the Family has some great material there as well. Matter of fact, 360 relational conflict or relational, conflict. Which is an extension of Peacemakers, is a great tool to have as well. Okay, so again, there's a ton of things out there that will help you. If you need some help in putting it together, let me know. As Mark has already said, I mean, he does a ton, but I was so excited when our convention said, you know what, we need to probably and I mean this in a good way, start assigning you guys to various associations. Well, since I live in Fairfield Township, they said, you take care of Cincinnati, Butler County, all of that. I didn't get Dayton, but that's okay. Tim's there. And so I was excited to be able to tell Mark, hey, look, whether you want me or not, I got to give a report every month on on how you and I are working together. So it has been a great, in my opinion, a great partnership that we get to work together. And I am grateful. I mean, he's not afraid to ask me any question or say, hey, can you give me this? Can you show me that? So, and that's also in the same way of conflict as well. You don't have all the answers, so go get some people or get some resources that will be able to help you in that. Okay? So, let me say thank you. All right, I know the pizza's not here yet. Nope, it's not yet. I thought they were walking in. Anyway, and we can continue to talk around lunch if you have any other questions, anything of that nature. But
just why don't you read through some of these 18 ways to resolve? Do you mind just going through the 18 real quick?
I can give them to you. Absolutely. Matter of fact.
Read through them and we'll write fast.
Okay, that's fine. Let me just go ahead and throw these up on the screen in advance so you'll have those. Okay? So, the first one is this. Remember the golden result. We know the golden rule. But the golden result is this. They'll usually reciprocate how you respond. Basically is what it is. Okay? Not always, but for the most part. Okay? Number 2 is bring the gospel into every conflict. That's what Jamie and I were just talking about. Okay? We got to do our very best. It's not the law, it's the gospel. Okay? Number 3, and I really love this one, expose the idols that drive conflict. That is very difficult to do. Matter of fact, I'm going to do this, Mark. I'm going to take time to do this. But back in James, and you probably already know where I'm headed. Back in James, chapter 4, verse 1, it says, where do wars and fights come from among you? Do they not come from your desires for pleasure that war in your members? The reason that most time conflict happens is because something is unresolved in their own lives. Okay? And they're taking it out on you. All right? All right. Number 4, guard against the Peter effect. in your lives. Now, the technical term, which I had to learn, the technical term was amygdala, okay? Which it's not there. So it's Amygdala. It is the amygdala hijacking. In other words, it is a neurological or an impulse response. Case in point, Peter, when he denied Jesus 3 times. He was caught, wasn't ready, made an impulse decision. That's really what that means. That's why we call it the Peter effect. Okay? All right. Number 5, there it is. Weave relational wisdom into your church. Stop being 2-dimensional, be 3-dimensional. What I mean by that, it's not just me and you in this situation, it's God, me and you. So we need to weave that into everything that we do, not just in conflict, all right? Number 6 is communicate so clearly that you cannot be misunderstood. And I got to say, guys, that's probably one of the biggest problems when it comes to conflict is that we just didn't communicate well. Okay? Number 7, work patiently with people as they process their emotions and experiences. Again, not everybody learns or understands at the same pace. That's what happens in schools a lot of times. We pass students who aren't necessarily need to go to the next grade, but we do that because we assume that everybody's on the same page. Not everybody's on the same page, and that's what's going to happen within your conflict situation, is that whether it's an individual or whether it's a group, you may not all necessarily be on the same page. Number 8, don't be misled by the 3 faces of fear. I don't think I gave you those, did I? They are control, anger, and withdrawal.